And now the one that you're all waiting for, our President of the Party of European Socialists, Poul Nyrup Rasmussen.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, friends. Thank you. Thank you. I can't hear what you say, right? Thank you. Thank you, friends. Thank you, friends. It's close to being to a football match right now, right? I mean, look at these wonderful colors, and I want to say to all the activists from the bottom of my heart, I've been with you all the time. I've said hello again to the first activist of the PS, and now I'm saying hello and thank you to the 20,000 activists we now have as our fundamental energy dynamics and force for change. From the bottom of my heart to all of you, thank you, activists. You are us. You are the soul. Thank you. Thank you. But friends, I would like to start because I think this is a magic moment. A magic moment in more than one sense. Never before in the PS history have we been able of gathering 2,000 people in one room at one event, coming not only from our own family, but coming from all over Europe, from social NGOs who thinks this world is unjust, from environmental NGOs who thinks this world have to be changed, the climate have to be protected, from human rights organizations, our trade union friends, you are all here. The progressive people are all here. For the first time, we have decided that if we stand together, we are many enough to change. Like the birds, you know. You've seen them each autumn when they start on their journey. First one, then two, then three, and then they're all there, and then they fly. From this very magic moment, we will take our journey for change of Europe, and we will fly. I of course also think it's a magic moment for me personally. I'm here to say farewell to you as a PS president. You know, my whole life I have listened to people's demands, people's body demands, and suddenly I came to the recognition that from time to time I need to listen to my own body's demands, you know. That's why it's time for change as far as I'm concerned. I'm still alive, dear friends, right? Don't worry. I'm not knocking at that door up there, but I'm knocking at another door. I'm knocking at the door to you. I'm knocking at the door to you because you are the future, because you and me and we will still change. So when I say goodbye as a PS president, I say good day as a PS activist. I'll go to Copenhagen now. I will be the next member of the Copenhagen City PS activists. So I look forward to see you, friends. But I want to tell you a little story. Before I start on the political issue, I want to tell you why I, Poul, first got up on this stage, in politics, on the scene, on the engagement. What was it? What is the story? Why are we here? Why are we politicians using more than 24 hours a day, engaged, speaking, arguing. Why are we NGOs? Why are we doing more than we ought to do if we were only thinking on ourselves? I want to tell you that story. Eliu Dirupu, and thanks for the message from Eliu, he said, well, Paul probably will talk about Lucas today. Well, can I say about Eliu, I was asked this morning by a journalist, don't you think that Eliu is in trouble? And don't you think that Eliu is under pressure? And don't you think that it's more than Eliu can manage? I said to the guy, listen, what Eliu is trying to do is exactly what we are all trying to do. Eliu is saying to the Belgian politicians, this country must be based on exactly the same values as all progressives want to base their country on. Rights and duties for all. Rights and obligations, friends, not only for the taxi drivers, not only for the cleaners, but also for the bankers, for the CEOs, for all of those who don't pay taxes. That's what he wants to do. And Eliu, he wants to ensure that all these admirable social protection legislation they have in Brussels, in Belgium, all over the place. This is not something which is too costly. This is not something which Mercosi, as I call them. Did you get it? This is not something which is too much, which is over the hill, which have to be cut away. This is something which is to the heart of the idea of a welfare state, which is that nobody should be left aside, that all of us should have a fair chance, whether we are born with a spoon of silver in our mouth or with a drag on our backyard, if you understand what I mean. And this is, so therefore I want to say to Eliu, your fights, your negotiations right now is ours too, and you have our full and total backing of solidarity, Eliu. Good luck, Eliu. We'll stand behind you. So that's why I hope, Eliu, that you will forgive that I will not talk about Lucas right now, but I'll talk about another little guy, a guy who was about 14 years old. And this guy was me, Paul, 14 years old. The first job I got in a fishery town in Esbjerg a couple of years ago was as a milk boy in an old dairy in the city. And, you know, I was bicycling with the milk bottles, and sometimes I made a small mistake in an order, and then the boss, an old-fashioned boss, you know, the boss talking about them and us. He was there, he called on me, and the whole team of this old dairy was there when he said to me how awful I was, how impossible I was, how talentless I was, how ugly I was, and he really humiliated me in the front of all these guys. And then he ended up saying, what are you going to do, Paul? Then I looked at him, and then I said, and at that day, I was also a big guy, you know, nearly as big as the boss, right? Nearly. Then I said to him, you know what I'm going to do, boss? No. I'm going to be member of a trade union. That's what I said to him. And you know, I'm telling this story because that was the event who propelled me into politics, into stage, into fights, into standing here today. And when I look at all of you, all your faces, your bodies, all your staying here, I know, I can see that each of you have your own story of the same kind as I have. It's about political consciousness. It's about knowing inside yourself that the reason why you are here, the reason why you are fighting is because you are a member of something bigger than yourself. That you have a driving force which are called awakening or political consciousness. You see, this is a fantastic knowledge. And when you and I know it specifically to tell you right now, I've observed how it is. Life is the most wonderful invention you can have. Can I tell you that? And when you know that, you are focused on using it. And when you combine that with your political consciousness, which I told you about, then you know what to do. By awakening of our potential consciousness, you see, against injustice, against unfair societies, against letting people outside, knowing that fight, getting that under your skin, it will stay there all your life. That's why I'm quite satisfied and happy with the new journey the PS is now taking off. I will be with you in another role, but you will be strong and you will be together. Can I say also to you that I think when we look around in Europe right now, what do we see? We see angriness, we see anger, we see despair, we see lost hopes, we see los indignados, we see the 99% people in the United States all saying, this is not us, this world. We will not accept that our dreams have been killed. We will not accept that there's no future for us any longer. We insist we are here to stay. There must be a future for us. The anger against austerity is out there. The anger against being not heard is out there. The anger of being expelled is out there. These voices of disenfranchised will be heard. And they will be heard in this magical moment in this room. That's why we have our progressive convention today, I tell you. I will also say to you that, am I beginning to talk of an election campaign for 2014? It looks like, Paul, right? Well, in a sense I am, but this time we have to do it different. This time we have to win. And that's why this time has to be different. And that's why we cannot afford any longer that each of us are playing in different rooms. Whether you are an NGO from Copenhagen or from Rome or from everywhere in Europe, you belong to the same fight now. This is the very idea of progressive forum here, of our progressive European convention. We need to get together, whether you're NGO in the green movement or in the red movement or in the trade union movement, we need to get together this time. We cannot afford any longer any more losses from now on to next year, to next year, to next year when we have the election to the European Parliament. You got it? You understand? Do we agree? So we got 2.5 years. We got 2.5 years. Next year, election in France. We will win in France. We must win in France. We will all be there. When our Parti Socialists is calling, promise me we will all go to France. All, even me, I'll be there. And you will be there. And I'm sure we can do it as we can do it all over the place in all the elections coming up. Next year again, we will have election in Germany. I'm sure we can get it. But you're not getting it automatically. People out there are saying, come and get us. And we need to deserve that people give us their trust. Because I know you also, many of you, of course you are skeptical about the so-called political elite. I understand. Of course you are suspicious. They have disappointed you so many times. I understand. But listen, there's a difference here. There are them and there are us. We understand you, and that's why we need to go together now. Because Europe now is over. The old Europe is over now. We hear the swan song of financial capitalism now. It cannot continue. It's over. It's only a question of time, and we will help that time to be as short as possible. We need another political space. And when I look around and ask the Conservatives, you have had 2 years now to tell us and to implement what you tell us in practical terms, to save us out of this crisis, and look around. Do you think you're a success? You know the answer yourself, don't you? Why don't you give up now and let us take over so we can shorten the pain and begin to come out of this crisis? When I see the Mercosur couple, I see a directorate of Europe which have nothing to do with the European spirit. We did not create Europe to have a two-state dominance of Europe. We did create Europe of another grade. We did not create Europe to have credit rating agency to give characters to a whole nation. We did not have a Europe to have a two-leadership Mercosur to dismiss governments and to decide how new governments should be composed. That is not our Europe, and we want to quit that part of Europe. That's why I want to say to you, George, you are our front figure. You are our leading, robust figure. We admire you and we respect you. I want to say that to you. And George, I'm full of admiration of your fights, of your proudness, of how much you are investing of your personal conviction in the most difficult job one could ever imagine as Prime Minister. All others of us who have tried or are trying to be Prime Ministers knows what you have sacrificed, what you have done in the best interest of the country and your people. And I must say that when I looked upon the financial markets, first they said to George, together with the Mercosur couple, you know, George, you have to cut down your welfare state. And when George tried to do it as softly and social as he could, then of course he warned them and said, if I'm going too far, then Greece will go into recession, in minus. And he was right, and when Greece went into minus, then the financial markets say, well, George, you have to do something about the growth, right? If you don't, we won't buy your bonds, right? First, they wouldn't buy his bonds because he didn't cut Greece. And then when he tried to do that, they wouldn't buy his bonds because he didn't create growth, right? I'm just saying, do you know, friends, what George as leader of Greece have been on from the financial market? Do you know that at the peak, the difference between selling a Greek bond and selling a German bond, do you know how much the big difference was? First it was 20% point. Then it was 27% point. Then it was close to 30% point. Now, I'll just make a little statistical analysis, right? And I've seen that no African country, no Southeast Asia country, no country on this earth have ever been brought into that situation, where the difference and the split between a German bond and another country's bond is of that size. So don't tell me, financial market speculators, that this is corresponding to the real economy. It's corresponding to your speculative universe, and we don't want that any longer. And this is why I know this swan song is not only a swan song for financial capitalism, it's also a swan song for Merkel and Sarkozy. I mean, we have said it again and again. We were the first who said we need to regulate the hedge fund managers, right? And first they said no, then they said maybe, then they said, well, let's try to do something. Too little, too late, and not sufficient. Then we said, we need to have the Euro bonds. That said, no, not at all. Under no circumstances, no, not at all. And we were the only ones who said it. Yesterday, I saw in Wall Street Journal, you know, the new Bible, right? Not mine, not yours, but someone's. I saw in Wall Street Journal that they say, please, Mercosur, take these Euro bonds. First, I thought, my God, have you got a wrong ally now, right? And then I understood. Because first, the financial market began to speculate about against George, against Consul X, Y, and Z, and they earned their money on speculating on the bonds of each individual country, because they knew that after all, Germany and France would save the Eurozone at the end of the day. Now they see that Germany and France, with the decisions they have made, cannot save the Eurozone. So now they're scared. Now they have perhaps been too tough. Now there's a risk that the Eurozone will fall apart. So that's why they say, please, Merkel, introduce the Euro bonds now, you see. I think that it's a question of time. I'm convinced that the Euro bonds will come, and we must be the front runners to realize that, because that is about Europe. That is about Europe. That is about building a new fence against speculation. That is an example of standing together. That is an example of Greece don't have to pay a difference of 30% points between German bonds and Greek bonds, or Portugal, or Spain, or Italy, or anyone else, Ireland. If we stand together, we can manage. That goes for the financial transaction tax. Have you ever heard of who pays taxes in the financial sector? It's only 2 years ago where one of the biggest guys inside the hedge fund managers said, well, to be honest to you, that was the front page on Financial Times. I pay a little less than my cleaning lady, right? So anybody can understand that we must have financial transaction tax, and anybody knows that this is also a question of time. Still hesitating, still too little, still too late, but it will come. Yesterday, Monti, Merkel, Sarkozy was gathered in Strasbourg. I did expect something more, can I say that? But I heard that they agreed something they called reforms. And I know all my electorate, when my electorate and yours, workers, families, hardworking families, are hearing the word reforms from these guys, they are saying, oh no, now they're taking my pension away from me, my unemployment benefit, my social security, my educational rights, and they are right. I am shocked, friends. I'm shocked. How can they, after all, wise guys, how can they ever imagine that if they continue their austerity plans, confidence will grow? Growth will come automatically. Haven't they learned what have happened the past 2 years? Haven't they understood what is the real interdependence in economy? When do they learn? We must learn them to learn and take over. I think that's the only thing to do, because confidence, how can any ordinary hardworking people be confident in a Europe where he sees around that his guys, his friends, his families are losing their jobs? Jobs loss and confidence, that's like fire and water. It don't fit together, you see. And that's why we have to insist of another way. I was so sad when I saw the credit rating agency again operating. You know the story. A few days ago, the credit rating agency, by mistake, downgraded France from AAA. And by coincidence, it was just a few hours before France began to talk about regulating the credit rating agency. Just a mistake, you know, just coincident, right? And a few hours after, they say, well, this was a mistake. We don't want to downgrade again. But I know how many people they have downgraded. In a little boardroom with 8 participants in a typical credit rating agency, in one of the 4, they are sitting there each day and deciding whether a whole nation should survive at the same price today as it did yesterday and will do tomorrow. They can decide in these small boardrooms of a whole nation future, of millions of people's jobs. This is unfair. And can I say, there's an illusion about the AAA. It's a mistake. We are not supporters of the AAA. This is not our dream. We have another one. We have a triple T. The triple T is sustainable because the triple T is about doing things together, together, together. You got that? That is the triple T. Let me then just say at the end of the work we have to do, dear friends, do you know that the top manager of Barclays, the biggest bank in United Kingdom, in the past 3 decades, he have had an increase in his payroll, what shall we say, what's your guess, 20% a year? More? I tell you, he have had an increasement of 5,000% in that period, right? Is that an average of the ordinary hardworking family in Europe, you think? Is that an average of the bank teller out there in one of his subsections? Why don't they talk about bonuses and this part of the society to take their part of the rights and duties? We must have an honest debate about Europe now. We must tell what it is about. I just want to end by explaining to you the financial transaction tax, what it means. If we imagine that everyone would pay her and his taxes of multinational companies of the financial market, closing the tax paradise and tax havens, we could pay the Millennium Goals twice. Alone here in Europe, if we introduced a financial transaction tax here, we could have around 250 billion euros a year. I think that's worthwhile. I think it's worthwhile to be the basis for a new step forward. If we decide to invest just 1% more in every nation in the next 4 or 5 years, we will have 8 million more jobs in Europe. Fiscal consolidation, better. Balance in our society, better. So it's a question of political choice. Paul, am I dreaming? Are we dreaming? Are we 2,000 people here who's dreaming? Is that possible to what you say? Well, I think we can start by saying, yeah, we may be dreamers, but we're not the only ones. There are out there 24 million unemployed people who are dreaming of a new job. There are out there 20 million poor people who are dreaming of a better future. There are out there a whole generation of youth who are saying, do as these progressive forum are telling us. And that's why I just want to say to you one more time, do me a favor when I say farewell. Do it, and do it together. You know that we can take Europe back. You know the roadmap for Europe that is ours. You know what to do now. Let's do it together. Let's convince the rest of Europe, and let's make the change. The most wonderful thing in life is to observe that standing together is the precondition for change, and doing it together, being part of something bigger than yourself, that is life. Do me that favor, and I'll knocking at your door all the time. Take care, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Very much. Again, what can I do? Thank you. Thank you very much.